What's up everybody, Raiko here. Today, I'm going to be bringing you my Tearlaments deck that I may be bringing to my next regional. It's going to be the Los Angeles regional happening, I don't know, 5 days from when I'm recording this. I'm really comfortable in the build, I'm not going to change it, so I'm going to be bringing you the deck profile now. So by the time the regional's over, you can see the placement and it'll be in the title of the video, I'm sure. Let's get to the main deck. You all know by now, I'm sure, that I love this deck. It's just one of the most fun decks that I've ever played. For the main deck, we have 3 Tearlament Rhinoheart. I know some people have cut this down to 2, but I really like this because something you really have to think about in Tearlaments, you want your draws and your mills to be good. If you focus on one or the other, you're going to find yourself frustrated a lot of the time. But this way, although it's not the best normal summon, being able to mill it is fantastic. And if you draw multiples, it's not too bad because you can usually pitch one if you mill off another Rhinoheart. But yeah, I wouldn't go any lower on 3. I definitely think it's necessary at 3. Next monsters, we have, of course, the 3 fusions. I wish that Konami would just hit the mill 5s and then just bump each name back up to 2. That way the mill is more consistent and less sacky. It'd be really nice, but you know what? It's okay. Each at 1, you still see them rather consistently. And then of course we have 3 Tearcash Tira. Love this card, fantastic addition to the deck. It's basically much better Havness, and it allows you to make easy Barone plays with Destrudo, which we will get into in a bit. Continuing with the Tearlament cards, we have 3 Planet Perlerino. This is very standard. I would not run any less. This card is the heart and soul of the deck. The fact that it has 3 very powerful effects that really come up every single game, fantastic. I really hope Konami doesn't hit it to 1. That would be really sad. And continuing with the Tearlament cards, we have a Heartbeat, which I know some people are cutting, but I think it comes up still because, again, it's a good draw and a good mill. 2 Tearlament Screams, and 2 Soul Leak. The Scream and the Soul Leak is pretty standard. Scream is a ridiculous card. I would want to play 3, but honestly, in this build, I just couldn't find the space. But it's okay. I still really like this ratio. And then for the broken cards, we have Keldo, Medora, Kelbeck, and Yugioh. We all know what these do by now. These cards should be banned. These are fine, but yeah, these cards should absolutely be banned. But until they're banned, we're absolutely going to play them. And then to go with the Ishizu cards, we have a Diviner. A lot of people are cutting this, but when you're playing Tearlament, you just want one card to do a lot, and Diviner is perfect for that, especially while the mill 5s are still in the game. Being able to save your normal summon and bait out interaction, or you can just use this to bait Asher Imperm before you continue with your Shiren plays, but I wouldn't cut this. And you see it more often than not, especially because Zombie Vampire can mill 4 and special it. And if that happens, you're on cloud 9. Going into the next engine, we have 3 Mseti. Love this card. Happy. And 2 Kingstar. This engine is very controversial with everyone in the Tearlament community. However, I think it is pretty good. It just makes it to where you can't really play other good cards. And that's like the problem with Tear, right? It's just there's so many good cards you want to play, but you have to figure out what you want to play and find the space for it while still being able to play non-engine somehow. This is strong because it gives Tearlaments just that extra push, which can make or break a game. I feel like this ratio is perfect. I wouldn't change anything like that. We play 2 Dangers. These are good extenders. They help fix bad hands. Nessie is an Aqua, and Mothman is a rank 4, which is fetched by Nessie. I think they're both pretty good. I can see why some people would maybe want to cut them, but having that extra Aqua, especially since I'm not playing King of the Swamp, definitely comes up. So if you're playing the Dangers and you don't really want to maximize on them, I think 1/1 is fine. For the Destiny Hero package, we are playing 1 Denier with the 2 Ally. Some people are cutting Denier, but getting that extra fusion material in the grave, that's just a good card to help you link climb. I don't know. I feel like this card comes up way often than not, even though most of my hands look like this out of my 3 out of the 5 cards. But you know what? I would rather draw him and brick on him. That way I can have that fusion material in that Beatrice line than never see him at all. So I wouldn't cut this. And then I do play the 1 Destrudo. As mentioned before, Destrudo allows for very good Baron plays. And at worst, you can also link climb with it. You can make dark with it. I wouldn't cut it. Yeah, you can side it out in time, which makes sense, but I don't know. I wouldn't cut this card. This card's just really strong, especially if you're playing Barone. For the Foolish cards, I play 1 Foolish Burial and 1 Goods. Some people are cutting Goods. I really don't know why. This card essentially gives you access to 15 to 19 cards in your deck, depending on the ratios you're running. Foolish Goods is just much better Rhoda. And yeah, Foolish Burial equals mill 5, but this equals literally any of the Tearlaments cards. It's fantastic. And then to go with the goods, I do play the Trivikarma as well. Trivikarma is fantastic. I wouldn't cut this. And then for the non-engine, I only had room for 5. So I am playing 3 Super Poly. I'm playing 1 Talents, and I'm playing 1 Called By. The logic with this is Super Poly is just good into almost everything. In game 1, most people aren't really going to be playing around Super Poly, especially if they don't know what you're playing. And this card alone is what will let you win unwinnable games. It's just too strong having that spell speed 4 and auto clearing a board. Well, who knows? This pitching, for example, one of the Ishizus is just so unbelievably strong. I wouldn't play less than 3 Super Poly. Talents. Other people are playing a lot of Talents, but when a lot of people are playing Talents and not a lot of people are playing hand traps, then Talents becomes less good. But Talents is really, really good in Tearlaments specifically because it can help draw you into more engine. When you're playing Tearlaments, you're milling your opponent's deck. You're playing a very back and forth game, so your opponent is likely to use monster effects. So having that one is nice, but you never want to see multiples. You don't want to ever see multiples really of anything in this deck. You want every card to be fresh, every card to be new. And then Called By. A lot of people aren't maining this, but I think if you're playing the Horus package, it's very, very important because Ash Blossom, when you pitch him setting in another card, is very drastic, and this helps you stop that. This also isn't too bad of a card into certain matchups. I don't know, with a meta this wide, this is just a good generic card to have. And if you are playing someone who's playing a bunch of hand traps, it's also a good card to have. Also, there's really no counterplay to Shifter in this deck. If you get Shiftered, you just kind of lose and you have to accept that. But Called By is one of the few cards that actually counter Shifter. So if you're lucky enough and you draw Called By when they Shifter you, you can actually play the game rather than scooping and going to the next game. It's nice. And that's the main deck. It's a total of 42 cards. And then for the extra deck, we've got, for the links, 1 SP Little Knight and 1 Dark. I cut Sprint. I don't think Sprint comes up enough to justify a position in the extra deck, given how tight the extra deck is. And the reason why I chose Dark over Sprint is because in grind games, this can search you Shiren, which does come up more often than you think. Also a fun, cute little play is Dark can take your opponent's SP Little Knight from the grave, and that does come up quite often too. So, I don't know. These cards are really, really fantastic. I don't need to explain Little Knight. She's just game warping. She's fantastic. For the fusions, I've got 1 Mud Dragon, 1 Garura, 1 Dangerous, 1 Guilty Gearfried. I'll discuss that in a moment. 1 Dracostapelia, and 1 Kaleido Heart. So the normal 5 fusions are standard. That shouldn't really need to be explained too much, but the Guilty Gearfried, I want to talk about this for a moment. What most people are playing right now, the really, really good decks, a lot of them are ending on SP and Barone. And this just clears that and helps push for game easily. Plus, with the field spell on top of it, being able to attack twice for 3k, especially if your opponent is just ending on a Barone SP, it's really good. Right now in this format, if you have the space and you're playing Super Poly, I would recommend playing this card. It does come up quite often. And that's it for the fusions. For the XYZs, we have Abyss Dweller, Bahamut Shark with Toad, Beatrice, Zombie Vampire, and I am playing the Typhoon. Although Typhoon does stop your Kaleido Heart, a lot of the time when you're summoning Typhoon, it's because you couldn't get to Kaleido Heart. And there are just certain boards, like playing into Vanadium Typhoon is really, really good and helps simplify the game state. So it requires very little resource commitment, and it can just clear a board on its own. I would recommend playing this if you can find the space. But I personally do value having that extra push. That's also why I'm playing the Horus cards. Because this whole deck, you just want to be able to push through boards and not have to really rely on non-engine. Just mainly engine. And then for the final extra deck monster, I am playing the Barone. Barone is so broken in Tearlaments. It's wild. It's a negate, which everyone knows it's a negate. But it's also a pop, where going first, there are so many times to where, let's say you couldn't use your Shiren that you summoned on field in like a proper way. You can just Barone pop the Shiren and continue your plays that way. And then also, if you end up using your Barone negate and it lives until the next standby phase, you can revive a Diviner, you can revive a Rhino Heart, you can revive a Kaleido Heart. Like, this card is so good. Especially in tier, every effect comes up, and if you're not playing it, it's just wrong. You have to play it. And then for the side deck I'm choosing to run for this event, I am playing 3 Droll and Lockbird. This card stops the decks that do the really dumb things, and I think it's very necessary this format. You don't really need to main deck it because of how diverse the format is, but you definitely want it somewhere, and if you're not maining it, you want it in your side. I would highly recommend it. I'm playing Skullmark Ladybug because it's a really good level 4. It's got 500 attack, 1500 defense, so like if you're bricking, you can set it, right? Yeah, needed. I am playing 1 Duster. This just is really good into Rogue, and it's also good into Rescue Ace. It is a 1-of, and it's very sacky because it's a 1-of, and I'm not playing Thrust to search it, but it's one of those cards to where if I draw it, I'm just on cloud 9. This card's just pretty good right now. I'm playing 3 Droplet and 3 XYZ Encore as my way to stop Dweller post game 1. I really like these cards because you want as many ways to see a Dweller out as possible, but they are also good into other matchups. Like XYZ Encore is also really good into Unchained, being able to put back the Caesar, and then also into Purrely. Being able to put back the Noir is very, very powerful and usually game winning. Droplet's all really good for Dweller, obviously, but it's also good against the Golem lock versus Makonko, because Tearlament actually has a really hard time against Makonko because a lot of the stuff is targeting destruction. Plus, there's no real way to clear the Acid Golem, so all you can really do is draw Droplet. But yeah, I'm a bit afraid of the Makonko matchup, so I wanted to find space for Droplet. The last spell I'm playing in my side deck are 3 Spellbound. This is my way to play against Flu. I mean, if you get shifted, you're probably gonna lose, but Spellbound respects Flu, so maybe you can buy yourself a turn back if you get shifted. It's also really good against Centurion, going first and second, and it's also a good Purrely out on top of XYZ Encore, so you'll have 6 cards going against Purrely going second, which is also very comforting, so I really do like this card right now. And then I play the 1 Tearlament Crime. It's a counter trap, it's good, it's a fine mill, protects against evenly. If you have the space in your side deck for Tearlament, this is where it is. It's worth running, definitely.
And that's the deck list. This is before the regional, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna do. But if the mill gods are on my side, hopefully I can do well. Also, if you're curious about my matchups, I'll add them to the description of this video as well. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and smack that subscribe button and join the crew. Also, if you all want to see some test hands with this deck, let me know in the comments below. I've been playing this deck almost non-stop since release, so maybe it can be enjoyable to have a video where I walk you through my thought process while playing this deck. Anyway, you all mean so much to me, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.